Good morning, everyone. We're happy to have you on this Monday morning for Broadband Breakthrough Infrastructure Planning Program webinar. We're happy to have a wonderful team here today to present this information to you. I'm Nancy Ouedraogo, State Specialist with Illinois Extension Community and Economic Development, and I'm happy to welcome on just a wonderful team of broadband partners here in Illinois. I'm going to let Adrienne Furness from the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society kick us off, give us our intro, and talk more about the partners and the program. Adrienne, we're so happy to have you back on. Thank you all for your time. And without further ado, I pass it on to you.
Thank you, Nancy, and welcome everybody. As Nancy said, I'm the Executive Director of the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society, and this year is our 44th year operating as a nonprofit, working to make sure everyone in the United States can use and benefit from high-quality, affordable broadband. So part of what we do is we work with local, state, and national leadership to provide information and analysis through our newsletters and articles and publications. We give practical guidance to communities, including through programs like Broadband Breakthrough, and we advocate for an agenda that's friendly to making sure broadband is built out in communities across the United States, as well as making sure digital opportunity is available to everybody. Broadband Breakthrough, next slide, Robbie. I'm sorry, Reed, here we go again. Broadband Breakthrough engages with each county team, and we'll talk about that in a second, and supports the community-centric broadband planning. And we do that by providing education, technical assistance, and coordination. And we're striving together to help community leaders partner with broadband providers to build robust broadband networks so you can apply for and receive your fair share of federal and state infrastructure funds. Next slide. Today, you're going to hear from the many key partners who will work with county teams over a 12-week program. I'm particularly excited that one of our graduates from Broadband Breakthrough Cohort 1, Tony Grant from McLean County, will talk briefly about his program experience. And here on the slide, you're going to see the logos of all the people that we rely on in this collective effort to expand broadband in rural Illinois. First, I want to thank Matt Schmidt and his team at the University of Illinois Broadband Lab, who are underwriting the Broadband Breakthrough Cohort 4 program in Illinois. For Cohort 4, we welcome the Reed Consulting Group. They recently partnered with Benton during a just completed program in Missouri, and you'll hear from Tom later in this presentation. County teams will get a chance to work with our longtime program partner, Nancy, at University of Illinois Extension. She and her team will help you with your community broadband use surveys and survey analysis. And as today, they also provide our communications platform and handle all our post-meeting emails with the slides and all the other goodies we provide our team. The research team from Illinois State University is led by John Kostelnick, and he's going to be providing two tools for the counties who sign up. And these tools have been already given to the communities that are in red, the counties that are in red on the map on this slide. One actually helps quantify the impact of high-performance broadband on the farming economy. So it looks at the increase in bushels and dollars in corn and soy production if farmers were able to take advantage of the kind of precision agriculture that would yield those results. In addition, John's team provides a vertical asset map, so farmers who have silos or communities that have other high points or vertical assets can use these to to deploy wireless network infrastructure to expand broadband availability, particularly in farmers' fields. And finally, this whole bunch of programs that we do would lead down a path to nowhere if it weren't for the Illinois Office of Broadband. They not only value, but in fact, they reward community involvement in broadband planning. Your plan will allow you and your ISP to gear up to apply for state funds, and there's over $1 billion. That's B. And that money is being made available to build networks in parts of Illinois that are currently or underserved by broadband. So I actually, before we move on to talking further about what communities receive in this program, I would like to turn it over to Devin Brownstein, who is the director, who will say a few words. And Devin, I super appreciate you've pulled off the highway and are in a parking lot to talk to people on the webinar today. Thanks, Devin.
No worries, Adrienne. Always happy to be here and very grateful for this partnership. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me all right. My name is Devin Bronstein. I lead the Illinois Office of Broadband, and just here to give a huge endorsement to the Broadband Breakthrough Program. So a little bit of background. Illinois is embarking on a pretty historic opportunity to connect every last household to high-speed, affordable broadband internet. And this is made possible through the $1.04 billion Connect Illinois Round 4 program, funded through the BEAD program, also known as the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Initiative. And the reason why we're so excited about this is because Illinois chose, as a part of its scoring criteria for applications that come in from internet service providers to serve different areas of the state, Illinois will not just be evaluating their proposals, but also the level of community support that they have. So local governments have this really unique opportunity to participate in the process, and make sure that the internet service provider who's selected to serve their community is actually prioritizing their needs, has engaged with them, and makes sense for the future of the community. So what you'll hear about today is the initiative called Broadband Breakthrough, which puts counties through a boot camp to give you the skills, knowledge, training, help you get organized, everything you need to shape broadband options that are coming to your community. So overall, the Illinois Office of Broadband is thrilled to work in partnership with the Illinois Broadband Lab and the Benton Institute on this important initiative. And with that, I will hand it back to my colleagues at the Benton Institute.
Reed, I believe you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Devin, and thank you, Adrienne. I'll briefly go over kind of this iteration of Broadband Breakthrough before handing it over to Tom Reed, who will speak about the role that him and his team provide in this kind of new iteration of the program that we, first ran in Missouri and are excited to bring to Illinois. So Broadband Breakthrough combines elements from our work at the Benton Institute in 6 different states at this point. We've run similar similar programs to Broadband Breakthrough. Broadband Breakthrough itself has now been administered to 17 counties in Illinois and 12 in Missouri. This spring, as I mentioned, we updated the Broadband Breakthrough program design. It now combines the proven expertise of these past Benton community engagement programs with technical expertise in analysis from the Reed Consulting Group. In addition, our close relationship, as you heard, with the Illinois Office of Broadband and Broadband Lab will allow for direct engagement with the entities in charge of the $1 billion coming from the BEAD program in Connect Illinois Round 4. Before turning it over to Tom, I'll go through some of the things that that engagement looks like with the Illinois Office of Broadband and the Broadband Lab. It helps to deliver strong applications to the Office of Broadband through this program. You'll learn knowledge and skills through working with our team to form those applications. You will receive information and research that shows your county's needs and help to ensure that you find the partner that is best to serve those needs for your community. We will hope to help to shepherd you towards local coordination in supporting a ISP. That will take the form of letters of support to an ISP, which the Illinois Office of Broadband has done a ton of work to provide a template and show counties exactly what they're looking for a successful community engagement framework to support a internet service provider in the Connect Illinois Round 4. You'll receive surveys that will aid in the kind of oomph that those letters of support have, showing that you have an adequate understanding of what your community needs, and that your endorsement of an ISP is more weighty because of the understanding that you have gained through this program. A couple things to highlight as we're going through this that are kind of parallel to this program, and that we'll definitely be promoting as time goes on, is the Connect Illinois Round 4 BEAD webinar series, which are every Wednesday at noon, where Devin and her team go through all of the relevant information that is coming with the BEAD program. And these slides are from our previous webinar. So December 18th, obviously, has already passed. That recording is up. There have been several webinars since, and there will be more to come as the BEAD program continues to develop and application periods come closer. And I believe that registration link will remain current, and if not, we'll change it to make sure that it's the correct link when the slides get sent out. Our coordination with the Broadband Lab and the Office of Broadband also serves to provide connection to the other larger ecosystems for broadband in Illinois. That is the Office of Broadband's community engagement managers, who will try to involve as much as we can and connect people throughout our program. And we'll keep you informed on upcoming initiatives like the Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program, as well as connecting you to relevant entities in the university system and regional engagement entities. And so with that, I will hand it over to Tom to talk a little bit about Reed Consulting Group's role in Broadband Breakthrough.
Thanks, Reed. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today and to partner with Benton and Broadband Office, and really appreciate the attendance of all the folks that are considering participating in the program. So Reed Consulting Group, we're located in Appalachian, Ohio, in Athens, a little college town. So we understand a lot of the issues in rural areas of getting broadband. We've been working in the broadband space for 15 years now. And what we like to do is try to achieve an understanding of reality on the ground and what sort of options we can use to address the gaps that remain. So we use a lot of different data sets, both public and private, to take sort of different perspectives on the broadband situation. So we do statistical analysis of Ookla speed test data. So Ookla, company may never have heard of, but they have a really smart business model. They offered all this free speed test capability, and then on the back end, they sell that data. And there's a lot of people that do speed tests. We found Ookla to be the most useful because right out of the gate, there will be millions of records. So they just have a lot of data volume, which allows us to reach statistically valid insights about the truth on the ground for the consumers. We'll compare and contrast sort of what the ISPs are claiming is there versus what we see there. We'll kind of illustrate where there has already been funding. Might be federal funding, might be state funding, but we'll show which locations remain eligible for funding. We also do an analysis called a fiberhood analysis, where we're searching for areas that could be built out with fiber to the home without any grant program at all, so that a community could move forward by partnering with an ISP to do fiber to the home in that area, even though it's not necessarily eligible. Then we're also tracking progress on funded projects. Again, the UCLA data is really, really helpful in tracking progress. We've been able to demonstrate very clearly that you can see which project areas are actually being deployed and which are still kind of not being deployed. We'll also work with you. A lot of local knowledge is helpful in this, identifying deployment obstacles, and then searching in the community whether there are any solutions we know about. One great example is if there's a river running through your community. Great to have a river in your community. However, crossing that river can really be a big obstacle for ISPs. So we just had a recent example of a community facing that. The ISPs weren't very interested in the community because they didn't have a river crossing, and it turned out the community owned a conduit under a bridge, and were willing to make that available to ISPs that were willing to meet their requirements. So that's another good example. Also, we like to identify all the ISPs in your area or in adjoining counties as well that might be interested. So you might not have had contact with them, or they might be on the fence, like rural electric cooperatives. Rural electric cooperatives are a great partner in broadband, either to actually build it and operate it, or just to support the process of expanding the network of someone else's network to their members. So we'll help you there in terms of identifying, and then as Devin was talking about, that's your opportunity to then put your thumb on the scale to say, hey, we want this ISP in our community rather than a different one. I think I have an opportunity here to go ahead and share with you results from what we were doing in Missouri. And I think it'll help kind of take all the gobbledygook of my language and explain it in better detail. So this is a report for Lincoln County, Missouri. So first page is just some basic demographic information. Now we start coming up with visualizations here. So this visualization is the fabric. So all of the dots are part of the fabric, and the fabric is the FCC's effort to come up with every broadband serviceable location. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. There are still errors in the fabric, but it's pretty nice to have a reasonably accurate indication that we can all agree on that there are broadband serviceable locations here. So in this particular county, a total of 25,000 broadband serviceable locations. The red dots are unserved locations, so about 2,100 unserved locations, and then about 1,000 underserved locations, which are the yellow dots. So give you a graphical representation of that sort of information. And then looking at possible solutions, it's important to look at the terrain and the foliage coverage. So terrain and foliage coverage have a big impact, particularly for fixed wireless and satellite services. I know a lot of Southern Illinois is a lot like Southern Ohio, where I live, with a lot of terrain and foliage. Then we're jumping into the speed test based information. So what we've got here is red is bad, green is good in terms of the speeds. The darker color of red, we think the broadband's really bad there. And this is where we start getting into some of the gap. So Devin and the broadband office done a fantastic job in identifying unserved and underserved locations. But the state of Illinois, just like the state of Ohio and state of Minnesota and every state that's been really focused on reaching the unserved and underserved, is that NTIA has adopted the FCC's findings, which are the FCC just says if an ISP says it's served, it's served. That's it. So this is where you'll start seeing gaps. And let me zoom in here where we can see in a little more detail. So here's an example up here in this area where we say there's basically no broadband in this corner of the county. It's all dark red. And you'll see that in this part of it, there's a lot of locations that are identified as unserved and underserved. So that's great. They'll get BEAD funding in Missouri for those locations. However, we see a number of other locations, the blue dots up here, where we do not think they are served, but there's an ISP up there claiming they are served. A lot of these are cases of fixed wireless providers, but what this gives us opportunity to do is, we believe this is reality. We think it's statistically valid. We don't think there's service there, but we can work with you then to say, can you help us validate or invalidate these findings? But the important thing here is there are going to be gaps left after BEAD. It's bad news, I know, but there are going to be gaps left after BEAD, and it's important for us to identify those gaps and prepare an action plan. I'm not sure where the funding is going to come from, state or federal sources, but there are going to be gaps left, regrettably. Then we'll also look at what are called fiber hoods. So these blacked out areas in this map are areas that have already been funded. They've been funded by a federal state source. We'll do the same thing in Illinois. We'll look at all the federal funding programs, all the state funding programs, map all that so we can go, okay, we shouldn't have to worry about those. We'll still want to monitor whether they're getting deployed, but they've been funded. But what we're looking for then are areas of sufficient population density. See these dark blue areas. So I identified areas with sufficient population density to support a fiber build without having any grant funding at all. In this case, we identified two of them. The darker, the larger areas here have people already building in them. So we identified these two small areas, Thornhill and Wilson. We'll tell you how many locations are there, how many road miles, so that you get a sense of what an ISP would have to face in this. And both of these look like they could be deployed without any funding at all. So that's an opportunity again in the ISP matchmaking to say, hey, if you're interested in coming into our county, look, we've got a couple of places you can deploy with no funding at all. And then we'll explain the entire process to you, and again, also do the ISP matchmaking. So I think that's probably an easier way to understand the previous information, and hope that you find that useful. Back to you, Reed.
I just want to interject, Tom, about the matchmaking that we have referred to, which is that we try to identify broadband, as Tom said, broadband providers either in or adjacent to the county. We'll help you set up meetings and actually act as an information resource and an ombudsman for the community so that just the right questions are being asked and we can help you move the dialogue along. The whole point of this program is to marry you to a broadband provider so they can turn around and either decide to build in a fiber hood without funding or, more importantly, apply for the state funds available. So I just wanted to be very clear about what that matchmaking looks like, and we've had some really great productive meetings. I see some providers on this call, and I want you to know that our intent is to go in and be helpful to all providers to help establish relationships with the communities that might apply for the program. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not trying to have a county built and operated ISP. That's a very unusual sort of circumstance. We're trying to help partner with communities and internet service providers. But this gives you, kind of equips you with the information and knowledge you need to have those conversations in a really meaningful way.
Thank you, Tom. So you saw a little bit of what the Reed Consulting Group is going to provide. Another thing that we'll go into in depth in a couple slides is a partnership that we have had over the past year or so with the Just Transition Fund to support up to $100,000 in grant support for coal impacted counties, of which there are a fairly substantial amount in Illinois. And we have a direct connection there. And so graduates of this program will have in with that organization to support, if they've identified a way that that $100,000 can be useful. The Just Transition Fund it is aware of this program and knows that it demonstrates preparation for that support. A little bit about our previous successes from this program in Illinois. In Connect Illinois Round 3, previous program graduates from any of the Benton programs in Illinois received $171 million of the funds, which is 52% of the funds available in Connect Illinois Round 3, just representing a dedication to these teams, once they finish the program, remain active in pursuing grant funding. Some of these teams completed the program, 2-3 years ago, and finally got an application funded in Connect Illinois Round 3, and it just shows that the teams that are formed are really important in continuing to chase down opportunities with the state and with ISPs in their area. So I'll go in depth on our program activities, and this will get to the question asked by Lake County in the chat, which I appreciate, about what counties can expect their level of involvement, the kinds of activities that they're going to need to dedicate time to during the program. You just saw all of the data that is going to be provided to you by the READ Consulting Group. And obviously it's great that that's being provided to you, but once you get it, you're going to want to do something with it. You're going to want to understand it, and make sure that it doesn't just go on a shelf somewhere. And in those ISP matchmaking sessions will obviously be there every step of the way to help you. And for many of these things as well, all of these things as well will be there to provide assistance. But it's not all on us. This is a team-driven program. So we'll start with an orientation session that will cover much of the same information in this, with a little bit more specifics on things that will take place further in the program, and we'll get specific with the counties that are involved. We'll review current broadband circumstances in each county, and kind of the broadband landscape as we move into Connect Illinois Round 4. We will then launch shortly after the orientation. Nancy Wadrago, who you heard from earlier, will help you launch a community survey, which is hosted by the University of Illinois Extension and distributed by the community. So all of the number crunching and the hosting of the URL that the survey is completed on is done for you. However, the survey is distributed by the community, which can, especially early on in the program, represents a lot of the time that will be invested by community teams is making an outreach strategy for that survey. And when we talk about the team, we stress that it's important to have at least 8 members of the team from representing a diverse makeup of your county at an organizational level, so that you have lots of different pots of people to distribute the survey to and get input from. The more people you have from a larger number of organizations, the easier it is to get that survey pushed out in a short amount of time. Then we'll move into, while your survey is running, we'll run a series of technical assistance Zoom sessions. Topics include project development best practices and a readout on the refreshed analysis that you'll be receiving from the READ Consulting Group, among other topics as they come up. We will then go through an analysis on an individual basis with each county in the program of determining the best options for ISPs and the best areas that should be targeted for funding, and that will be one-on-one with each community and the Broadband Breakthrough team. So it won't be in a webinar session. It will be a conversation for us to learn about your community, and then see how we can best shape our assistance to your situation. With that in mind, and then as the community survey draws to a close, we'll move into that ISP matchmaking process where the READ consulting group will have identified all of the ISPs in your area and that are in surrounding counties, and we'll help you if you don't have contacts at those ISPs, form relationships with them, and even with the ones that you already have a relationship with, we're happy to be a part of those discussions when the ISP is thinking about making a application for funding, or if there's the areas that you're seeking aren't eligible for funding, figuring out a way that the county can assist to make a build in those areas that aren't eligible but need help viable for the ISP. We'll then wrap up at around 12 weeks will be our end date, with a wrap up of all of the plans that have come out of this program. Each county will produce a next steps kind of document, what they're planning to do as Connect Illinois 4 rolls around, and we will wrap up with a presentation of those next steps and some analysis of the data that the READ consulting group is providing. I think I'll let Adrienne speak a little more about the Just Transition Fund, which I touched on briefly.
Thanks, Reed. I just want to hit, if you don't mind, a little more specifically on the time commitment. As Reed said, this is a 12-week program. Some of this is webinars, some of this is individual county help, particularly around your data and also the interviews you would have with ISPs. We always say the more team members, the more work gets spread. We've taken teams of a few people as 5. We've had a team of 20. Certainly, you can imagine that when you're distributing the survey to various people, if you have more team members and you utilize their connections, whether in business or in education or emergency services or healthcare, you get more survey results, which is really a good thing. That is the single biggest and heaviest lift for the county, but we really require, it's probably an hour to 2 hours a week of time outside of the survey. So I just want to make sure and that the time is set flexibly by the community after the webinar. So we try to work around and we invite everybody to the table, including prospective providers, can come to the sessions. But it's really important to have good team leadership and to make sure that you have a robust team. And you said, for how many weeks will the survey be available for resident engagement? Reed, I think we're open 6 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's coordinated with Nancy, so I don't want to speak for Nancy there.
Yeah, 6 weeks is usually the goal, for what we do. There might be something going on locally where counties want to shorten that or lengthen that a little bit, and we try to work with everybody. So, but yeah, that's a pretty good estimation, about 6 weeks and for data collection.
And Nancy, I think it's important for people to realize that as survey results come in, we give you data as it goes along so you know who's responding, and then you can target efforts. So for instance, if a whole part of your county somehow isn't getting the surveys for whatever reason, we give you that data so that you can target your efforts and try to have it be less of a scattershot approach. So that kind of analysis and help, I think, is really important. But let me turn up. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, Adrienne, on the surveys, we also can support targeted social media promotions. We found that to be really successful. As she was suggesting, there's some corner of the county that's not responding. We can very carefully geo-target that. Doesn't cost very much money to push it out on platforms like Facebook. Even people who don't have connectivity, generally they're using the internet from somewhere, might be their workplace as an example. And so those social media promotions are usually pretty successful in reaching those folks.
That is absolutely true. We had great success with that in Missouri. So let me talk about one other opportunity for particular counties in Illinois that are what we call coal impacted. And so these are communities that either, well, most likely had coal-fired power plants that have to transition the whole community has to transition and stop using those coal-fired power plants at some particular future point. And there's a wonderful organization that we've worked with called the Just Transition Fund that's really interested in trying to help communities spread their economic opportunity and their employment beyond these coal industries that may be prevalent in particular counties in Illinois. And here is a list of counties that have are eligible for receiving up to $100,000 in grant funding from Just Transition. We have worked with them in Illinois before. Kathy Brown at the Greater Peoria EDC took advantage of one of these grants for one of her counties. And so we actually last time we were able in our cohort 3 to talk about this opportunity with Massac and a couple of other players. And so we just want to make sure that people understand that this isn't any county, but just these targeted counties. It's an incredibly simple application, and the $100,000 can go toward helping with a grant funding application. We often hear that there are small counties, small population counties struggle with capacity, not only in staff time, but in, just sometimes don't have dedicated grant writers. And so this kind of grant opportunity really helps a community bring some of that money or other resources to the table. So we just want to make sure that you are aware that these counties are a possibility. I see Lake County. Lake is on here, and you've been active in the chat, so you should know about this opportunity as we go into the program.
Well, and unlike most grants, the Just Transition Fund, it's a pretty simple application process.
Very
If they
simple.
like the plan, it's most of the grant programs that you're used to applying for, right? It takes 6 months to get an answer, and you've spent all this time and money to apply. Just Transition Fund is really streamlined.
Yep, exactly. I think it's time to hear from Tony. Am I right, Reed?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, Tony, thanks for hanging in with us. And we want to introduce you as I would say, a star leader in our first cohort. McLean County, I'd love Tony to talk a little bit about your demographics, but of course it's the home of Bloomington Normal and our Illinois State University, who's become a program partner. And Tony was in our pilot of 5 counties when we began this particular program. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tony, just to give some insights to people who are new to the webinar and to this information.
Well, thanks, Adrian and Reed, for the invite today. I'm always happy to come talk about Broadband Breakthrough, as it's been so beneficial for us here in McLean County as we sit here on the precipice of BEAD funding to come and actually build out networks here. Now, we have very few hard-to-reach areas of the county from the classification, so we know we won't be in round 1 of this BEAD funding from the state, but we will probably be picked up in the second one. But to you, you probably don't know what any of that means if you're on this call and you're interested about Broadband Breakthrough, and we wouldn't have known what that means without going through this process. It was hugely beneficial for us. Just to go through a quick history of how we ended up in McLean County and becoming a part of this, in October of 2022, our county board members started receiving complaints from their constituents about a DSL provider saying they would no longer be able to provide service in rural parts of our county. For those that don't know McLean County, we are the largest county in the entire state of Illinois when it comes to landmass. We are approximately the size of Rhode Island, and we have a total population in the county of around 170,000 people in that space. So Bloomington Normal itself is pretty well stocked when it comes to internet service providers that provide high-speed internet. You get outside of that, our rural municipalities might have a single cable provider that does provide high-speed internet, but it is very expensive. It is not a rate that's affordable for those, generally speaking, in a moderate to low-income family. So our board members started receiving these letters, and of course, wanting to do something to help our rural residents. They passed and added a plank to our legislative agenda to address rural broadband. Very serendipitously, about a week later, 2 weeks later after this was passed, and us, from a staff perspective, having no idea how we were going to accomplish any of this, our Regional Planning Commission reached out to us about the opportunity for the Broadband Breakthrough. So we rushed through, put an application together, received word in late December that we were accepted in the Broadband Breakthrough. And as part of our application process, we needed to develop a team. Our team, we wanted to make sure we had a nice cross-section of really society as a whole, because broadband does touch so much, really everything. So we, from a government perspective, we're all in. We had our Regional Planning Commission was all in regards to this as well. As we get outside of the government, we looked at finding what partners made a lot of sense. The Farm Bureau has been an absolute huge asset to us. McLean County Farm Bureau has been one of our strongest partners, jumped on this on day one, as they understand the impacts of this on their citizens that are a part of their group, and the potential impact in the farming and agriculture industry and the adoption of precision agriculture, which is going to need to occur at some point or another. They were fully on board with that. We reached out to our Economic Development Council. They were fully been a good partner. We reached out to education. We had a number of educational partners from both the secondary education and high schools and elementary schools. We had healthcare partners that were a part of it as well. We had social service partners who all came together and participated in this class. It is hugely important to make sure you have a cross section, because everyone's going to look at this from a different perspective. And it's nice to have that diversity. And as Adrian, I think, said earlier, spreading that work around is hugely beneficial. From a time commitment, for us here in the county, I think what Adrian said is about accurate, about an hour to maybe 2 hours a week. Then once you finish the classes, of course, the 12-week, there could be more, there could be less. What we found is we kind of have our core group of individuals who are very active. And then we have kind of our group that's right on the fringes that are not nearly as active in regards to the group, to the effort. So it's really getting a fantastic group put together. So we attended the 12-week. The surveying stuff was hugely beneficial. Even the ISPs that we're looking at partnering with where we sit today are looking through those surveys and are planning to use those within their applications. We were able to apply for a feasibility study after we finished Broadband Breakthrough. Those that participate in this cohort, it does appear that a lot of the functions that we got out of our feasibility study are actually included, including some of that engineering design piece. That was something that we did not have when we left Broadband Breakthrough. So I think that's a huge value add for what you guys are going to get by participating in this. So as we continue to spin things forward, we did do a feasibility study that really dialed things in, helped us understand exactly where the specifics were in our county and the areas of opportunity for us to strive for. We did participate in a lot of the challenges to help make sure that the maps were as accurate as they could possibly be. Again, we would not have had any ability on any of this if we had not attended the Broadband Breakthrough. And as a staff member, I can tell you that our county board, when we started this, was a split, 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats. And in our modern political environment, when you have all parties, all 20 of them, 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans all agreed and universally supported us engaging in these efforts. So the long or the short of it is this is a tremendous opportunity for any county to wrap their arms around what this situation is going to look like. As we sit here now, because of the broadband breakthrough, we've identified two key partners through an RFI process or request for information to different internet service providers in the county that we will be backing and helping support as they apply for the BEAD funding as we move forward. We're in the process of looking at permitting. That's one area that, again, we were not aware that we're going to be an opportunity for us to assist in. And again, Broadband Breakthrough has really pushed us into where we sit now, which we believe we will be able to fully take advantage of all the funding. We've identified partners in the county from an ISP, again, because of the contacts and the discussions that we were able to have. And you're going to encounter situations in this broadband space that you don't know, even after going through this and having a network of people to reach out to. I recently reached out to Adrian and Reed about some permitting questions that have to do with easements. You develop a nice network through this because you're not going through this alone. Whatever issues you're going to have in your county, most likely somebody's going to be dealing with them elsewhere, which is another huge benefit that we have here. So from that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do fully think that if your county has not gone through this, I don't believe there's a cost associated with this. It's really a time commitment, and it's really going to benefit your constituents and your counties. We need to be prepared. As this is a one-time funding that's going to be coming from the feds through the BEAD program through the state of Illinois. And what I always try to talk to when I'm out talking to the citizens of McLean County is this is really the electrification of rural America that took place in the early 1900s. This is that version, and this is our opportunity to have that impact in our communities. And if you aren't a part of it, it's going to happen without your support, but it's better for you to have your finger on the pulse, have some direction, and make sure that you can help support everybody in your county. Again, any questions I'll be happy to take. I think I went maybe a minute or two longer than I was asked to, but I think it's very important to share what information and the experiences we have here is hugely important. And building out that team has been hugely beneficial for us because we still meet, even though it's 2 years on since our stuff, probably at least once a month as a group as we give updates and where things are continue to move forward.
Tony, thank you so much. I want to talk about, first of all, having a leader who's really energetic, can gather people. We were really blessed to have Tony play that role for us. But I think there are a lot of representatives from small counties. So you would say, 170,000 people. There's so many people to draw from. In that same cohort, we had Schuyler County, which had about 6,900 people, and it was the economic development person who played the leadership role. So the point I'm trying to make here is size in this case does not matter. I think it's really the team, and leadership can come from anywhere. We had a community of 200 where it was a totally citizen-run effort. And 3 years later, they now have a provider who received a Connect Illinois Round 3 grant and is going to bring broadband to this little enclave that was sitting in a valley and very difficult to reach from a terrain perspective. So we just want to say that we've welcomed small counties and large in this effort, and that leadership can come from anybody with an interest and motivation to learn about this incredibly important issue for the vibrancy of our rural communities in Illinois. Let's see, any questions?
Real quick.
Somebody from Grundy. Oh, I'm sorry. Who was going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to, before we get to questions, briefly go through the application process.
Right.
Very simple. We have space for up to 8 counties in the program. Counties, we should say up to 8 communities. It does not have to be county, though we typically work at the county level in this program. And other programs we've worked with different levels of geography, whether it's a town, a group of counties, larger or smaller geography, we're flexible if that is what makes sense for you. If you have a good relationship with the county, or the town is what's in need and you have capacity to take it on as a town or city, that we're happy to work with that kind of designation as well. As we mentioned in the chat and Tony mentioned, there is no cost to the community for this program, and all counties in the state are eligible to apply. To apply, it's via email. You just shoot it to me with contact information of your team leader. The best way to get in touch, whether it's phone, email, so on. Community description of who you are, who's on your team. A general broadband situation overview, which would include, just briefly, if there's any previous efforts that have gone on around broadband planning, what your level of need is to the extent that you are aware, and yeah, just a couple sentences. And the most important thing is a community team roster of at least 8 committed team members, though preferably the best teams we find have closer to between 12 and 15, from local government, economic development, education, healthcare, nonprofits, technology, and regular community members are always welcome as well. And I really like Tony's saying it's a cross section of all of society. That is just completely true of the best teams. If you have the entire county represented on your team, you're just going to be just well positioned to take on this program and really maximize its benefit. So yeah, if you have any questions, or if you just want to express that you're forming a team, you have interest, please shoot me an email, and then with your final application as well, that's just sent to me as well, at my email address there, read@benton.org. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions. And Christina's question in the chat from Grundy County was a good question about, does the team need to be led by the county or the local government? It absolutely does not have to be. It's obviously very beneficial to have the county government represented and involved on the team. But if capacity lies at a different organization, like a chamber or an economic development agency, that is perfectly fine. We have worked with many such teams, and they've done well. And I think those kind of organizations are often suited best to lead a planning program like this.
Yeah, and I do want to just reiterate again that this issue of community members are welcome. We've had individual farmers, small business owners that can't process credit cards because they don't have connectivity in their towns. And so representing an organization is great because of your reach into your membership or your constituency, but individual team members is also just a terrific way. We've had, I just want to point out, we had an earlier webinar in December. We fielded a lot of questions. There was a team that contacted us to say, I only have 5 members. Can I still join? We took a look at their size and demographic and said yes. And here's why. Because as you go through the program and you reach out with people through the survey, you pick up other team members. So the point is to have, we've started with a team of 12 that ended up at 22 people through that process, because as people got to know that the county was going through the program, they kind of raised their hands and said they'll get involved. So the point is we are flexible. We're just trying to give you a heads up that the more the merrier, but we would discourage having a single person apply for a variety of reasons. But I think if you're making an effort and continue to do that, to build that, that would be great. Now, there are 2 questions, one from Travis in Marshall County. And Tom, I think you might be the best person to field that question about the utility who wanted to pursue the grant, but told us that last mile delivery could only be wired connections and not fixed wireless, which would take an astronomical amount of money. So I do want to maybe talk about different technologies here.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I tend to be an advocate of fiber to the home because it's a longer term solution. Certainly, there's some places where fixed wireless makes sense. Um, One of the dividing points that I suggest you look at is there grid power there? If we've managed to extend grid power to a location, fiber is much less expensive to build and maintain than grid power. So if you can get grid power there, you can probably get fiber to the home there.
And then you have a question about how receptive is IDOT for placing an ISP conduit under their bridge? Has this group or team reached out to IDOT and already asked this question? I would assume that Devin's been in touch and works with IDOT and is probably not on this call any longer, but we could certainly talk about that unless anybody has anything to add there.
Yeah, I'll actually jump in on that one real quickly. IDOT is receptive to these types of things. Obviously, they have process and procedure that you need to follow through with. But they are receptive. We worked with our highway department in a number of different situations to really, because they have those existing relationships. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to with a lot of this stuff is leveraging your existing relationships, whether you have them or others in your organization. But IDOT is receptive. Obviously, they have the procedures and processes that you need to follow through with to get that permitted to go through. But they are receptive for it. They understand what we're dealing with. The bigger challenge is not IDOT; it's really railroads. If you want me to be completely honest, railroads are substantially more complicated and difficult to try to get a fiber line through or a conduit of some sort. And just on the WISP question from above, I'm in the same boat as Tom. I think shooting for as much fiber deployment is key due to the duration in life, and it's kind of future-proofing the network, whereas in WISP, we'll need to get updates as technology changes and demand changes within your area as well.
See, this is why I love Tony going through this program. That answer, Tony, to me is illustrative of when you talk about where you were when you started this program and now how you're able to talk. This is just terrific, a terrific illustration. There is a question about Cook County here from Dwayne Douglas. Hey, Dwayne, how are you? We've had municipalities from Cook County participate in our Accelerate program. I really think this is about looking at your PAUs or your and underserved locations to see whether either there is a good amount of unconnected territory or sections of the county. For instance, look, somebody may come to us and say, some of my county is really well connected, but the northeast corner is not. I mean, you heard Tony say Bloomington Normal was great, but the surrounding area is not so much. And so again, we don't want you to look at this as an all or nothing thing. You may have a real need in a particular section of your county that, or maybe that part of the county adjoins to the county next door who also has a real unmet need. We say broadband providers don't necessarily respect county boundaries. And so sometimes that kind of partnership, we certainly had that in our last or our first cohort where Hancock and Schuyler were next to each other. They recommended they joined the program together. They did create separate plans, but there were really an opportunity for them to talk with each other about some common interests as they went along. Now, I know we're a little over, guys. I unfortunately have another call. I do want to urge you all to, if you have further questions, if you would like us to make a separate presentation to a county leadership that may be on the fence, we are happy to do that. And we have done that in a lot of different instances. So if there is the need and you would like us to do that, and I see Pat here saying Scott County is quite small, so getting team members. But please reach out to Reed with separate questions and we will answer them. We will get on the phone with you. We will Zoom with other members if you need us to. But I do want to say that applications are due in about a little over 2 weeks. So January 30th, and this is really kind of first come, first served basis. So I would urge you all, this tends to be a last minute thing from people, and we tend to get in that last week, even the last 2 or 3 days, we tend to get a lot of applications. This is an easy application. So even though it is easy, I would urge you not to delay. At least get in and start. And if you have any questions for Reed or for Reed and the rest of the team, he can funnel them to people. So Pat, I would suggest let's have a conversation separately. And if you'd like to drop your email into the chat or we can get it through Nancy, we can do that. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We had up to 84 people at one point. So that was a really good turnout for Monday morning at 9 a.m. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Tony, again.
Muted.
Thank you,
Take
everybody.
care.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.